I've coached in programs that coaches brought in their kids. We mentioned weekends, brought in their kids early on Saturday morning, thinking if they did that, they wouldn't stay out as late on Friday night doing bad things, and they would run them to supposedly run out some of the bruises and stuff, and then they would bring them in for film on Sunday afternoon. After you've been through sprint football for a couple of years, isn't that hard to imagine?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
go ahead,
haven't.
Garrett.
Yeah, I'd say we haven't. We used to do it. And I don't know if it was I don't know if we tried to run bruises out of guys, but we for sure used to come in on Saturday mornings, and we would meet out on our track, and they would do like one lap around the track, and then we would do some different movements or whatever, stretches to get them some ISO holds and stuff like that, whatever. And then we'd go watch film. We watched film of the game, and half the time then it was us getting pissed off at whatever happened in the game, the night before, or frustrated with stuff. And it just wasn't a good experience for anybody. And on top of having to get up early, and guys weren't resting, recovering. And so now, we don't see our guys until Monday. And Mondays might be a little bit longer now for us than what they used to be, because we're do a little bit recap from Friday's game. But I think with a different lens, it's more from the positive side of things. There'll be some corrections that we make, but for the most part, we're celebrating. When you win a lot and you're successful, there's a lot of good things to celebrate then from the game, and then we'll do like our game plan for the Friday that week. But for us, not having to come in on Saturday and Sunday, our guys can sleep in now. They watch college football, watch NFL, and just enjoy their time away, and then they come back, hungry on a Monday and excited, for the next week, for the next opponent. They're refreshed and they're energized, and they're not tired and sore and, beat down from Friday's game and having to come in Saturday and all that kind of stuff. So getting away from the weekends and waiting to come back in on Monday has been huge, just for the mental health of our kids, I think, on top of the physical health, for sure.
We did it for all the things that Tony talked about. We brought him in just essentially to keep him out of trouble. But it was generally the first time the coaches were watching the film too. So I think by having a weekend to, because sometimes I'll watch the first time myself and be upset with certain things that, and then when I watch back, and then I kind of realize why we were making that mistake, and understand that it was probably a coaching error, whereas if you watch it the first time and then, you get frustrated that this kid's doing X, Y, and Z. But, so we give our kids very kind of intricate notes. So in each position, so they get position notes sent to them by Sunday-ish midday that they can look at on their own. And so when we show up Monday for film, they've already got the idea of what we're emphasizing, what we didn't do right. I think it was TFC Iowa. I wasn't there, bought some of the videos, and Ankeny's D coordinator talked about 7 good plays to 3 bad plays. So we don't always do the exact breakdown, but we try to show more positives than we do negatives in film instead of the opposite. And obviously we show common mistakes that, and common mistakes are, I usually take the blame for that, because if we're doing the same thing at multiple spots, then they're not understanding it, or I'm not teaching it well enough. And so, we emphasize all that. Because I've got 100% of people in my PE class, we don't even have to sprint on Mondays of practice anymore. So, we literally just go and we watch the film, and then we get our game plan ready for the next game, and we go home. We try to have them out of there by 4:30 on Monday nights.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm proud of with these counterintuitive ideas is that it's not only really good for those kids to repair their mental health on Saturday and Sunday and be hungry to get back into practice and to look forward to practice because it's the best part of their day. But don't coaches reflect that too? That in a world where we can't keep coaches coaching, because of the time requirement, because of the summers, because of the 7-day a week, because of not getting home by dinner time with their wife and kids. There's just, it just seems to me that, something needs to give. And if we could find a way to win without ruining our adult life, that would be a pretty good thing. Don't you guys find that your coaches seem to be rested and ready?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I've got my offensive coordinator, and now has been here for 16 years. My other main defensive guy has been here for I think 14. So the three of us have been together a long time. We don't need to sit in a room together on the weekends and rehash stuff. If we're getting together on the weekends, it's with our wives to go do something, or with our kids and that type of stuff. And then the other guys we have, they both own businesses, so you got to be mindful of their time too. They're not in the building. So they've often talked about how, we was talking about 14 weeks. It's really 16 with the 2 weeks that you start practice. And so that's a long time. We actually got our AD gave us our football checks at the end of week 9. We don't get any extra money for the extra 5 on weeks, whatever. But, so it's a long time to ask of those guys. And so I give them the freedom to get their work done by Sunday night. I don't mind going out and doing the laundry and the stats and stuff. I take a lot of times I take my kids out, or my son, and he goes in the gym and he shoots and does whatever, helps me do the laundry, so I try to take that off their plate. But again, I'm doing that at my own leisure, and obviously we communicate, and then when the playoffs roll around, we give our guys Monday completely off, so everyone can go home, and it gives the coaches a little bit more time to prep, so they don't have to spend all day Sunday when you play on Saturday in the playoffs. You want to make sure we still have family time then on Sunday.
Yeah, I think
you have like 3 kids as well, right, Garrett?
Yep, we got 3. I got 3, 11, 8, and 4. And like Brad said, usually a Sunday's, me going into the school and getting some of those extra duties done, as a head coach, that we try to take care of so that our assistants don't necessarily have to. But either I got my daughter and she's color and drawn in the office next to me while I'm working on stuff, or I got my 2 oldest are boys, so they're in the gym. So it's like life of the coach, right? And Tony, I know you grew up that. My dad was a coach, so I think it's a cool experience to kind of to have that with your kids a little bit. But for us, weekends, like you said, Saturday is completely off for players and really for coaches for the most part. Sometimes Saturday night we'll start to dive into some film for the opponent and things like that, but Sunday's kind of my work day. And so that's kind of how I try to balance the weekend out. Saturday, try to be as much family as possible. And then Sunday's kind of the work day to get ready and prepared for the week. But I think, by doing that, with our coaching staffs, to be able to retain, a coaching staff, like Brad said, that's one of the biggest parts, I know for our program success, and I'm sure Brad would say the same thing, to be able to have a consistent coaching staff in place, working with those kids as they come through. They're consistently hearing the same message and being coached the same way. And we're in the same wavelength, with our staff. It's such a huge piece to have, that consistent voice and face, I think, in those positions. It's a huge part to a program success. If you have a program where it's a revolving door of assistant coaches every year, that makes it really, really tough to build a winning program. And so whatever we can do to retain quality coaches and give them a great experience in addition to our athletes, huge piece to our success for sure.
I know. Go ahead.
Before one of my TFC talks a few years ago, I did a thing on Twitter about just trying to get a gauge of how much time coaches were spending on the weekend. And for a lot of them, it was like a badge of honor. They wanted to tell me, they wanted to DM me and tell me, well, we spend, they were super proud of all the time they were spending in there. Which is crazy. And then I've heard a lot of horror stories of coming in at 8 a.m. on Sunday, leaving at 4 or 5 on Sunday night, and then back in there at 5 a.m. on Monday morning, and that's just crazy. And then you look up their record and they're 2-7, and and you've talked about it. Then the cycle continues, because then you double down more and more and more, and the losing just continues, spirals out of control.
I know that the three of us, I don't know if all of our audience knows who Steve Jones is, but Steve wrote the book Twin Thieves, which is a book that every coach should read, and you probably need to buy a copy for all your players as well, or at least your leaders, your captains. But I asked Steve Jones to speak at a TFC, I think 4 consecutive years, and he turned me down every year. And the 5th year, he just knew that I was going to keep asking. So he came in, and I'll never forget this. I said, "We'll have you speak twice. What do you want to talk about?" He said, "Well, I want to talk about culture and mental toughness." And I almost said, "Steve, that's not really what we're about here. Like, we're more about speed, performance, that cheesy stuff, just not going to fly, But I kept my mouth shut, which we've always done with TFC, and encourage people to do what they do. And of course, he comes in and I mean, I felt like my life changed the night I heard him speak. Like, I was a different person. And I've had the chance to spend time with him, and Chris Corfus feels the same way. I think he's spoken at 6 or 7 TFCs, and now he has the book, and now he's a professional speaker. I think he charges around $10,000 to come out to your place. And I just know last summer I saw that he's out with Matt Rule for a week with the Nebraska team. And then a couple weeks later, he's on the sideline for the Packers. And in between those 2 times, he was at Camp Boy Central. How in the hell does that happen?
Well, obviously, TFC was kind of where it all started, and I got to know him through there. I think you had actually given my name to look at the book when it was in its editing phase, Brad Fortney and I. But me being a little bit lazy, I never got to it. So you won't find my name in the back of that book. I read a little bit of it, but never read it all. But so I had that. I had the copy of it, and I read it. And then I listened to him speak again at Wisconsin in 2022, I think. And that kind of really solidified that I needed to get this book for the players. And I kicked it around the year before. So we made it happen. We bought the book. We did the study. It was kind of eerie in 2022. Because I don't want to give stuff away in the book, but we were in that boat where we were doing well in the regular season, and then we were losing in the playoffs. We've done that back-to-back years in games we shouldn't have lost, and that's kind of what the story of the book's about. And then each week, or we do 4 chapters a week, and they kind of fell right in line with how our season was going. It was pretty awesome. And so we read it, and the kids, they had the books, and I told Steve when we turned the books back in, I thought for sure that I was going to have to force kids to buy a bunch of them. And there was only one book that had gotten some water spilled on it. And the other 50 books came back in almost mint condition. So for a high school kid to carry around a paperback book shows you how much they thought of it. So we read the book. Steve even did a video for us before our semifinal game that we upset a team and, put the running clock on them. And so almost exactly a year ago, we're at our runner-up ceremony, and our superintendent, I talk about the book because the chapter 36 is the 10-year reunion. So we hadn't read that chapter purposely. So I talked about it, discussed some things on why we're successful using the book. And so she thought it was cool, that didn't know we were reading the book, because we really just, it wasn't like a publicity thing. We didn't broadcast it to everybody. And she went and bought it for her dad first. He read it in like 2 days, wanted to know if there was any more. She read it. And then in the spring, then she asked me, "Hey, could I get his contact information? I'm thinking about bringing him down." And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm sick of doing for 16 straight years, we did the same breakfast, listened to the same message, broke out in groups and wrote stuff on the wall in the same old beginning of the school year. And so she brings Steve down, and he does 3 presentations, one the day for our staff, and then that night for our community, and then the next morning for our kids. And in between there, he snuck some time to come over to my patio and we had an IPA or two, and it was pretty cool to just talk to him just about different things. But yeah, to get on here was we had a brand new Airbnb that had just opened, or a like a little hotel that had just been redone. He was the first guy to ever stay in it in Camp Point, which was pretty cool. So.
And Garrett, you were highly influenced by Steve as well, right?
Yeah. So before I knew who either you guys were or knew what sprint-based football was or anything like that, I got a chance to listen to Steve speak at a Wisconsin football clinic. I think it was in 2016 or 17 when he was still the head coach at Kimberly, and knew about his success, obviously there, winning 70 plus games and 5 straight state championships. So it's like, you got to go listen to a guy talk that's that successful. And like you said, Tony, nothing to do with X's and O's or performance or anything like that. It was about building a culture and what that looked like, to create quote unquote toughness and going on a mission and burning your goals, and just some amazing messages that when you hear it just blows you away and is really life changing. So I immediately reached out to him and asked for as much information as he was willing to share with me, and we started incorporating some of those things the year before I took over as a head coach, and really is the foundation now for we have a culture playbook that we use in our program that like the first 2 weeks of the season, kind of that summer, that preseason camp time before you get into your week 1 opponent. We take about 30 minutes every day and we go through our culture playbook, and we really kind of build the foundation for what our team culture is going to be that year. And every year it's a little bit different because you have a different mix of guys. So it's a similar process that we go through, but every year feels a little bit different when you come out of it. And we certainly have Steve, to thank for a majority of that. And then we do in the spring, actually, we do a book study with guys in our program. It's like a voluntary thing. Anyone that wants to, come be a part of it. And so we started doing Twin Thieves this last spring, and we were able to, we had so many guys that wanted to be a part of it. We had to end up splitting it in 2. So we did a junior group and we did a senior group. So essentially every, varsity football player this year read that book this last spring. And like Brad said, there's so many parallels in that book, to what goes on during your season. We were able to tie some moments back as they're happening, real time in the season, to things we had talked about as we were going through that book study. And it's just great to kind of be able to recenter yourself and be able to use that to help, kind of guide your process as you go through the season. So huge part of our program as well. And, have a lot to be thankful for from learning from Steve.
Yeah. Culture is I actually spoke badly about culture for many, many years because I just thought that everybody that talked about it, it was cheesy. It was corny, and I don't like corny stuff and cheesy stuff. I've been a coach's son for like 64 years, and I smell, when I smell cheesy stuff, I don't even like that stuff. But the culture that he preaches is not cheesy, is not corny. It's performance based, it's tough, it's manly. And I'll never forget this. He said, everybody has culture. It's either going to be intentional or by default. And for some reason, that just got etched into my brain that damn it, I have a culture. My culture is what we do and how we react. It's not, like pasta dinners on Thursday night. That's not our culture. It's not a scavenger hunt on Saturday morning. That's not our culture. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of cheesy stuff out there in the world. Most of them are cross-country coaches, but I'm kidding. There'll surely be no cross-country coaches listening to this. So yeah, they are pretty cheesy with some of the things they do. But the point being is that basically, to me, culture is just unwritten rules. I mean, it's how we play, how we react, how we treat each other. how we go about our business, and that's not cheesy. That's important. And when you have good culture, like I had good culture as a chemistry teacher, and that's why I had no class rules. They said, what? Yeah, no class rules. Culture took care of my class rules. The kids knew how to act. This is how we are in chemistry. I taught kids how to act. And if you teach kids how to act and how to be, that's culture. And I just think that Steve's voice is just so unique.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into the discipline stuff, obviously, too, or lack thereof. This is a great year for us in terms of not having to deal with any disciplinary issues. But one thing that happened in the state game that I didn't even see until somebody had taken a video from a different media, and it was an aerial view of our last snap of the game when we took the last knee. Of course, this is the first state title in school history in any sport. A team that had beat us pretty bad the year before, and the caption was, showing respect. So as soon as we snapped it, our guys didn't run to the sideline. They took time to shake the hands, good game, all that stuff with those guys on the field, and then once they did that, very subdued, they didn't run around like crazy. They came to the sideline and we celebrated. But it was just something that made me proud, because we don't, and this is something Steve Jones said to me too, that's always stuck with me, is we don't talk about winning and losing. We just don't. We talk about how we should respond, how we act, act like you've been there before. This is what we expected to do. This is what we prepared to do. It wasn't like this was some huge surprise to us. And our guys acted like that in the biggest game of their career with 12 seniors. That was their last game. They acted like they had been there before. And that made me proud as a coach. And it was something that I didn't even notice happen, because I was probably running around hugging people on the sidelines. But it was really neat to see, the respect, that the mutual respect between two great programs, between us and Lena Winslow in that state championship.
Yeah, and I think that that was important too, that actually Lena Winslow got on the sprint-based football thing a year before you did. They stopped conditioning, they stopped practicing on Saturdays, they cut practice time down. They started RPR, they came to Track Football Consortium, all that stuff, because the track coach heard about Feed the Cats, took it to Rick Ahrens. Rick Ahrens called me one day in 2017 or 2016, can't remember which. And we talked for about an hour and a half, and he was sold. And I think in like 6 years, he lost 5 games or something. So he was pretty good program that you guys beat.
Yes. Another funny story. So we are 27-1 in the last 2 years, and they're the only team that I've seen do RPR and not static stretch. But and I can't even remember who, but I had somebody.
Still haven't played anyone, so
I had somebody from the stands that I think I coached in track or in football in a previous, and I really can't remember who it was, but when we were getting ready to play our quarterfinal or our semifinal game, they were out there way before us, and they were all in a big circle static stretching. And so they came to me either after the game or the next day, and they, Coach, when I saw them out there static stretching, I knew you guys were going to beat them. Because we tell our kids, man, that's the best thing I can see, especially after halftime. And they get done playing the first half, and they go out, especially if it's cold, and they get in a big circle, and they sit down in the wet grass and stretch. I feel like we have a huge advantage.
In our state championships were played at US Bank Stadium, and where the Vikings play. And so you only get, because they stack multiple games in a row. So which is, again, our guys were feeling great because, the ahead of time, they're like, oh, you're only going to get, 20 minutes on the field to warm up before kickoff. And we're like, oh, great. That's
all you need.
That's all we need. That's all we need, with from a, skill-based stuff. But, we did all of our sprint warm-up stuff down in the hallway, and both games, as we're doing, our speed drills, and we're running some wickets in the hallway underneath US Bank Stadium, just down the hallway. It's, the two teams that we were going to play, where you could hear them clap on the static stretching, as they were going through it. And our guys just had big smiles on their face, because they knew already at that point, like, these teams are in trouble. So
I love it.
yeah, it's great. What, you know, now that we've been doing it long enough, just how I guess well informed, you know, our players are. It's amazing, you know, how much they feel it and understand it now and can speak to the benefits of it. You know, and they're talking to, you know, players from other teams about it and stuff like that. I've had conversations with our guys when they said, oh, we talked to so and so from this school because they were wondering like what we do and why we do it and stuff, and the fact that they can speak to it and understand the benefits of it. And it's such a cool thing because you feel like, you know, you're obviously we're making an impact in so many different ways, but the fact that we're helping them understand, you know, from a performance standpoint too, like why this matters and why we do this. They're not just mindlessly going through it and they're like, yeah, I don't know why we do it. Coach tells us to do it, but we do it. Like they actually understand the why behind it and see the benefits of it. So yeah, it's pretty awesome when the kids get it too.